Satanic Verses. That man, who will not be named, wrote a book called Satanic Verses, which roused the sheep to become voracious wolves, but instead of protesting and burning his book, they should have burnt the one that was the source of this sick story. The messenger in the Hadith traditions was said to have come under the influence of Satan, wrote verses from him and put them in the Qur'an, hence the Satanic Verses. Read Ibn Ishaq as he explains the Qur'an for us, as without this knowledge from men we could not possibly understand it. First the Qur'an as Allah intended.
Have you thought about Lat, and Uzza, and Manat the third other? 3 goddesses of yours. Why, for yourselves you would prefer only sons, whereas to him you assign daughters. This indeed is a very unfair division, that you worship female idols and resent having daughters.
Put your feet up, make yourself a cup of tea or coffee, as this may take some time.
Ibn Ishaq, now the apostle, was anxious for the welfare of his people, wishing to attract them as far as he could. It has been mentioned that he longed for a way to attract them, and the method he adopted is what Ibn Hamid told me that Salama said M.B. Ishaq told him from Yazid b. Ziyad of Medina from M.B. Ka'b al-Qurazi. When the apostle saw that his people turned their backs on him and he was pained by their estrangement from what he brought them from God, he longed that there should come to him from God a message that would reconcile his people to him. Because of his love for his people and his anxiety over them, it would delight him if the obstacle that made his task so difficult could be removed, so that he meditated on the project and longed for it, and it was dear to him. Then God sent down by the star when it sets your comrade as not and is not deceived. He speaks not from his own desire, and when he reached his words, have you thought of Al-Lat and Al-Uzza and Manat the third, the other, Satan, when he was meditating upon it, and desiring to bring it, reconciliation, to his people, put upon his tongue, these are the exalted Quranic whose intercession is approved. When Quraysh heard that, they were delighted and greatly pleased at the way in which he spoke of their gods, and they listened to him, while the believers were holding that what their prophet brought them from their Lord was true, not suspecting a mistake or a vain desire or a slip. And when he reached the prostration 3 and the end of the surah in which he prostrated himself, the Muslims prostrated themselves when their prophet prostrated, confirming what he brought and obeying his command. And the polytheists of Quraysh and others who were in the mosque prostrated when they heard the mention of their gods, so that everyone in the mosque, believer and unbeliever, prostrated, except Al-Walid b. al-Mughira, who was an old man who could not do so, so he took a handful of dirt from the valley, and bent over it. Then the people dispersed and Quraysh went out, delighted at what had been said about their gods, saying, Muhammad has spoken of our gods in splendid fashion. He alleged in what he read that they are the exalted Quranic whose intercession is approved. The news reached the Prophet's companions who were in Abyssinia, it being reported that Quraysh had accepted Islam, so some men started to return while others remained behind. Then Gabriel came to the apostle and said, What have you done, Muhammad? You have read to these people something I did not bring you from God, and you have said what he did not say to you. The apostle was bitterly grieved and was greatly in fear of God. So God sent down a revelation, for he was merciful to him, comforting him and making light of the affair, and telling him that every prophet and apostle before him desired as he desired and wanted what he wanted, and Satan interjected something to his desires as he had on his tongue. So God annulled what Satan had suggested, and God established his verses, i.e., you are just like the prophets and apostles. Then God sent down, we have not sent a prophet or apostle before you, but when he longed, Satan cast suggestions into his longing. But God will annul what Satan has suggested. Then God will establish his verses, God being knowing and wise. Thus God relieved his prophet's grief, and made him feel safe from his fears, and annulled what Satan had suggested in the words used above about their gods by his revelation, are yours the males and his the females? That were indeed an unfair division, i.e. most unjust, they are nothing but names which your fathers gave them as far as the words to whom he pleases and accepts, i.e. how can the intercession of their gods avail with him? When the annulment of what Satan had put upon the prophet's tongue came from God, Quraysh said, Muhammad has repented of what he said about the position of your gods with Allah, altered it and brought something else. Now those two words which Satan had put upon the apostles' tongue were in the mouth of every polytheist, and they became more violently hostile to the Muslims and the apostles' followers. Meanwhile those of his companions who had left Abyssinia when they heard that the people of Mecca had accepted Islam when they prostrated themselves with the apostle, heard when they approached Mecca that the report was false and none came into the town without the promise of protection or secretly. Of those who did come into Mecca and stayed there until he migrated to Medina and were present at Bad with him was Uthman b. Affan with his wife Ruqayya d. of the Apostle and Abu Hudayfa b. Utba with his wife Salah d. of Suhail, and a number of others, in all 33 men.
This is typical of the fairy tale hearsay stories. A heard it from B, who heard it from C, from D, from E. The story has the messenger being upset they were not coming to Islam, so this allowed Satan to possess him, make him say words that were not from Allah, who then corrected him and retracted them. Satanic possession, which gives the enemies of Islam an opportunity to attack the messenger with this self-inflicted wound of ignorance. A simple reading of the Qur'an has none of this nonsense, and most Muslims say we need hadith and traditions of men to explain the Qur'an, and this satanic verse explanation is a striking example of what we get. All the extra Quranic explanations are not relevant or nonsensical and bring nothing to the Qur'an except a distortion of its message. Let us see a few examples of what the Qur'an says about the messenger and the charge of his satanic possession.
Noon. The inkpot and the pen, and all that they write, stand witness. The high domain of knowledge will bear out that you, O Messenger, by the grace of your Lord, are not a madman, and yours will be an everlasting reward. 4. You have sublime morals, and soon you will see and they will see. Which of you is the demented? Superb knowledge and sublime character can only indicate a great man. Your Lord knows best him who strays from his way, and he knows best those who are rightly guided. So, pay no heed to the rejectors. O Prophet, go ahead steadfastly in establishing your Lord's command, and be not like him, Jonah, of the fish who cried out in distress. If it were not for the bliss of his Lord, he would have been cast into the wilderness and in the wilderness of thought. But his Lord elected him and included him among those who worked for reform, and thus, actualized their own self. Those who deny the truth, attack you, O Prophet, with their eyes when they hear the reminder. And they say, he is a madman. Nay, this is no less than a reminder for all people. This is the revealed word in the dialect of a noble messenger, strengthened by him who is enthroned in his almightiness of supreme control. The messenger is to be obeyed and trusted. This fellow man of yours is not a madman. He has found wisdom at the highest horizon, and he withholds not the revealed knowledge of the unseen, nor is it the utterance of a rejected satanic force. Selfish desires. Which way, then, are you going? This message is no less than a reminder and giver of eminence to all mankind, unto every one of you who wills to live upright. But you cannot will it unless you abide by the laws of the Lord of the worlds.
And the Quran says that Satan cannot influence those who are servants of Allah. So how does this square with the Ibn Ishaq fairy tale? The messenger of Allah was under Satan, Nauzu billah, and to hell with those who write and follow this nonsense.
Iblis said, O my Lord, because you have put me in the wrong, I will entice them on earth, and I will put them all in the wrong. Gawa, put in error, thwart, mislead, deprive of sound judgment, except those who are truly your servants. This is, with me, a straight path, said God. Surely, you shall have no power over my servants, except those who put themselves in error and follow you. And for all such, hell is the promised abode.
The Quran further reveals to us that we should not sit or listen to or read anything or anybody that is making a mockery of the Quran, and it is only by this book that we are to become better people and try to educate others, not Bukhari, not Ibn Ishaq and any other scholar.
Even then, O Messenger, your people deny the truth. Tell them, I have not been appointed a guardian over you. Every tiding given in the Quran shall come to pass, and you, mankind, will find out. When you see them engaged in vain discourse about our verses, turn away from them unless they engage in a different subject. If Satan ever makes you forget, your mind gets engrossed in their discourse, then as soon as you recollect, no longer sit in the company of the people who confound the truth with falsehood. Zalimeen, those who relegate the truth from its rightful place, those who choose to do wrong. In this verse, trying to displace or confound the truth with falsehood. Those who live upright bear no responsibility for them, except to remind them, that they may protect themselves against personal detriment. Leave to themselves those who take their religion as nothing but pastime, amusement, games of ritual, and social partying, their life revolving around quick gains of the worldly life. But follow up with reminders with the Quran on appropriate occasions. Remind people lest a self be ruined for its own actions. No self has a protecting friend, master, or intercessor against the laws of God, even if it offered any conceivable ransom. Such is the end of those who land themselves into ruin with their own actions. For them is a drink of burning despair and a painful doom. They had kept denying the truth.
According to the Quran, on the authority of Allah, there was no possession, no madness, no satanic influence in or on the messenger. That is why some will be condemned on Judgment Day by the messenger himself.
And the messenger will say, O my Lord, these are my people who had abandoned this Quran as something to be neglected.
The Quran Unchained.